So the day has finally come. We've got our heat sinks that are coming in and we've just got the package now. So we're going to take these off the rig and it's finally time to replace the thermal paste and the heat sink for all of these miners. We don't have the fans quite yet. Maybe that'll be in the next video if they arrive. So we have another 3 noctua fans coming, and as long as we get the heatsink fine right now, we can just add them very quickly onto the rig and then we'll go from there. As I said, the 4-pin one, we are waiting to see if we actually got the right one or not, because this one was technically the wrong one. So as I said, we are going to be taking these all off and we're going to actually be replacing the thermal paste and the heatsink. So let's take them all off and then we'll get into what heatsink we're actually using today. So there we have all 3 of them off. We have the Gamma there, and we have the Supra there, and the Max version here. And today we're going to be using these heat sinks, so these black ones. I'm going to take them out of the bag now. And these are from Solo Mining Co. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go and buy some of these. They are the black heat sinks, and apparently they can pull up to 20 watts of power away in terms of the heat dissipation, and hopefully that's going to help with the temperatures on all of these. So let's get them opened and let's get them set out, and then we can get into taking all of these off. So as we can see here, this is some of the stickers that we got with them from Solo Mining Co. I'll just put this here because it's good brand placement. I'm not actually affiliated with them. I ordered this all by myself, so I don't actually have a discount code, but if they want to hit me up for a discount code, I'm always open to the opportunity. So as you can see here, black heatsink. It's a bit thicker than the usual one and it has 4 points of contact. So we discussed this in a video a couple of times, how running across just on the normal heatsink, you only have 2 points of contact, as you can see there. But here you have 4 points of contact, which is going to get a tighter fit on the ASIC as well at the bottom. And obviously replacing the thermal paste is going to be good as well. So the next step is to take off all of these fans and unclip all of the heat sinks on the back of them as well. So let's get into doing that and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like. So as you can see here, we have all of the fans taken off currently, and now we just need to get the heat sink off. Now there is one thing, if anyone can tell me an easy way to get these off, I'm going to go in with pliers and try basically squeeze them to get them out. If there's an easier way, please let me know, and please let everyone else know in the comments below. But that's the way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with pliers, and then the next step is going to be probably cleaning off the thermal paste, and we want to do that with some isopropyl alcohol, but we'll get into that after we've got all of the heat sinks off as well. Plus I might take the LCD off just so when we're doing the actual thermal paste we don't knock into it or anything like that. So as we can see here, we have the Bitaxe, and that is the chip right there. This is the Max version, and we have our heat sinks here. So this is at a weird angle, but that's basically the heat sink, and we've done the same for the Max as well, as you can see there. And sorry, this is the Supra, and you can see the chip there. So we only need a little bit of thermal paste. And the main thing that we're going to be using today is this MX4 thermal paste. Get it to focus. So that's what we're going to be putting on there. We need to clean up these at least on the actual chip here, and we still need to take this one off. So the way that I did it was basically pliers into here and here. As you can see, plier in here, squeeze it, plier in here, squeeze it, just until it goes through this little hole that you see here, and then you just pop it out and the spring should come out after that. So let's do it for the last one, and then let's clean it and get the thermal paste on, ready for the new heat sinks. So whilst actually looking through it, and I didn't realize this until now, so it's be very vigilant when you're buying things for the Bitaxe, because some of them might not going to work. Same with the fans as well. We've bought 3 heat sinks, and the heat sinks do not actually fit onto the Max or onto the Supra, just because of this little USB that's in the way and down here. So you can't actually fit that through down into anything, which is very annoying. I could probably make it work for the Max if we soldered this off, basically. And I could probably make it work for the Supra as well if we sold that off, but the question is, do we want the option to have that on or not? And the same with this. So it's a hard decision to make because that is going to be able to flash it if it ever, doesn't work. But we could take it off and then put the heatsink on. We are going to do it for the Gamma that we see here because we have the option to. I didn't realize that this one only has 4 holes and these ones have 2, but we are just learning over here on the channel. We could make a decision on that. We could take this off if we really wanted to, but for now I think we're going to just replace the thermal on these 2 that we have here. So we have the Supra and the Max here, so we're going to replace the thermal on them, and then we're going to just add the normal heatsink and we'll upgrade the fans when they come in. And we're going to add the new heatsink onto the Gamma. Still, it's all about learning. We can always send these back if we want to. I might just give them away because they're only about $7. So if you have one, go join the Discord Mindshare and I'll see if we can make arrangements to send one of these out to somebody in there. But for now, let's just clean up these 2, replace the thermal paste, get the fans back on, and then we will move on to adding the new heatsink onto the Gamma. So now we have all of these cleaned off, so you can see the chips. Let's try get a good view of that. See if it's focusing there. So these are the chips underneath. We still need to do a little bit more cleaning, but we can still replace the thermal on them. I think that this is the biggest chip out of them. So because it's the Gamma, it is from an S21 Pro, I believe. And you can kind of see it if we flip it upside down. It does say BM. Let's get it real close to the camera there. It says BM137 and then 0BC, something like that. So let's try and get it there. And we can't really see it on the other ones because the other ones are way smaller. But we still got some cleaning to do on them, but you can see that these are a lot smaller. I think this is the cleanest one I could get just right off the bat. We still need to clean up the sides because there's a lot of paste in there still. And when we're looking at this Max, you can see that the actual die is a little bit off by there, like right around this point. Sorry, it is shaking a lot just because it's very hard to get that into focus. We're going to be doing this and we're just going to be putting a little bit of thermal paste on each of these. So I think you only need just a real small amount to actually get this through. So it's going to be maybe one dab, and then one dab on the other one. Very, very small. A little bit more for this one, just because this one, if we get it in frame, sorry, this one's a little bit bigger, and then this one's a little bit smaller. So we're going to go with that. We do need to set up, or at least get the screws out for this actual heatsink here. So we're going to have it like that, going across it. So we are going to put a little bit of thermal paste. Let's just do the Supra that we have here firstly. Remember, this is MX4 thermal compound, so this is actually from a CPU that we had quite a while ago. So I'm going to recommend, and we're going to do this a little bit closer so I can zoom it in there. Zoom it into here. Let's bring it into focus right there. So it's just going to be about that much on, I think. I even think that that's a little too much, but let's just twist. I want it to go like directly on to the actual thing, so we need to maybe push out a little bit more or just twist a little bit more. So that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of overall on the board. A little bit less than that is okay, and we're going to use a bit more on the bigger Gamma, but that looks okay so far. Let's just do it for the rest of them and attach the heat sinks again. We still need to rub off the thermal paste from these as well. As you can see, there's still thermal paste on the bottom of that. So we're going to take that off as well. So let's go do all that and then let's attach them and get them back up onto the rig. We'll come back when we've attached the heatsink for this one, this heatsink. So we have the heatsink for the Gamma right here, if we zoom this in, we're going to try to show you. Now, you are going to have to tell me in the comments if this is too tight. It looks already to be a little bit off-centered. Might have to take these out a little bit. Let me know how tight it's supposed to be on it, but I'm sure we'll know as soon as we get it running kind of what temperatures is looking like. It was very daunting doing that for the first time because you don't really want to crush the chip below. And it's one of the main things about Bitaxe is you are kind of working with, you know, the raw chip at the bottom, which you don't want to damage too much because that's basically, you know, $150 down the drain if you ruin that. So I was very careful when I was actually putting this in. I can be a little less careful with the other ones because they're spring loaded in terms of the heatsink. Again, forgot about the fact that this is only 2 pin and the other ones are 4. So we don't have to be as careful with the older ones, but with this, I just found it very finicky to actually screw that in. You can kind of see I've left a little bit of a gap, and I was told to leave a little bit of a gap, but let me know if that is wrong, because I am just taking advice from anyone who comments at this point, because it seems like a lot of people know a lot more than me. But it is actually a little bit bigger compared to the normal heatsink. Sorry, that's one of the pins. So in terms of profile size, you can kind of see that there. It's a lot thicker in terms of the profile and a lot larger or a lot longer in length. So I'm assuming that's going to help with some of the heat dissipation. So it actually looks pretty good, but we'll obviously wait until we've got it back up on the rig. We can see how much we can pull from this. I'm just going to stick the normal fan onto it, see what that fan can do, because this is, you know, the noctua fan. As we said, we haven't got the 4 pins yet, so we can't control the fan speed, but we're going to stick a normal fan on here, stick a noctua fan onto the Bitaxe Max, you know, mix and match it around, whatever. And we still need to put the heat sinks back onto these ones as well. So let's go through, put the heat sinks back onto them, and then we can start attaching the fans. So we just put the fans onto the Bitaxe Gamma. And as you can see, the one thing that I bought these heat sinks for is because they have these rigid edges and the screws fit perfectly into there. As I said, I put the older fan so we can control the fan speed, and we're going to try to get some higher hash rate out of the Gamma. But for the rest of them, we've just put on the heat sinks, as you can see, with the spring pins there. So for both of them, and we're just going to attach the fans now and get it back onto the rig. So as you can see, we have all of them there. We have the Gamma here, we have the Supra here, we've just put the old fan onto that, and then we have the Max here, which is with the noctua fan that doesn't actually control the fan speed, just because that's the one that's going to get the least amount of hash rate, so we're putting it on there. And we have new fans coming in. I've already mentioned that, but we do have new fans coming in. So let's get these put back onto the rig. We're going to put the LCD screens back on as well. And then let's get it moved over to hashing on the computer. So here we have it all set up. We have the Gamma again, Supra, and the Max. The LCD screens, I just plugged them in, so I'm going to need to reset it to actually get it to turn on. But you can see here already, we're going to compare it to the other overclocks that we did and the temperatures, but we're going to see if we can push the overclocks a little bit further for this one just on the heatsink. And then hopefully we can do some more overclocking and accessories later down the line. And then with these two, I'm just going to try and push it as far as we can. Obviously the thermal paste being replaced doesn't really make too much of a difference, but for this it definitely should. So as we just seen on the rack right now, we have them all 3 up and running. It already looks to me like the temperature is way down on the Bitaxe Gamma. So that's always good. The power draw is a little bit less. We're at 18 watts, we're at 575 and 1.13 volts. And when we look at the previous video trying to overclock it, we can see that they had a low voltage warning, and that was the power supply. ASIC frequency is kind of at the same range that we're looking at now. And I believe that the heat was way higher, because you can see it there, even at 80% on the fan speed, it's way higher than what we see here. Sadly, I didn't move it over in the video editing, so I can't actually see what the temperature was, but I'm assuming it was above 47.9, something like that. And we're currently at 1.12 terahash. So already doing way better than I believe we were in this video, because if we go back here, you can see it's 1.3, but that's with the low voltage and more power draw on the actual Bitaxe. So we are going to try overclock this. The other two are running fine-ish, I would say. The Supra, as we can see here, the temperature actually hasn't gone down, and the watts haven't gone down too much either. That's kind of expected. It was only replacing the thermal paste. And the Max, the same thing. The heat is still there. Fan speed aren't that high, but we can overclock that later on. Let's get into overclocking this, because that's the main reason that we did all of that. I only changed the thermal paste on the other ones because I thought we could have the heatsink, but I thought might as well just replace them at this point because we're already here and we've already taken them off the rig. So let's go into settings here, and we are going to bump this up to 600 and 1200. We're going to lower the fan speed a little bit to 70. I know in the last video we had something to do with the audio where it was cutting out because of the fan speed, so I apologize if the audio is still bad, because we're trying to get it to actually pick up my voice, but these fans are really loud in the background because it's right next to me. So we can see here, let's just have a look. Let's wait for this to load up. 47 degrees already, around 19.8 watts, 65 degrees here, fan speed 70%, input voltage is good, ASIC frequency good, and measured ASIC voltage good. Currently mining to Digibyte. I was mining to somebody else's pool in the Mindshare Discord. I've taken it off for the minute because I was just putting the heatsinks on, and this was the first one that I could load up instantly, and I want to be able to see if I can actually submit to the pool. Hash rate of around 1.57 here. Temperatures are definitely holding on steady, so that's good in terms of replacing the heatsink. I might need to tighten it a little bit. Let me know in the comments if that was tight enough. You can scroll back and look at the space between the chip and the heatsink. I think it might need to be tightened just a little bit more to make sure that it's transferring all the heat. But even with the ASIC temperatures now, that's still looking good at 52 degrees. We are going to up the fan speed, and we're going to do 100% full bore in about 5 minutes once this is stabilized out. So it looks to be stabilizing out at around this hash rate. I know we haven't given it too much time, but I think we might as well just keep going up in terms of the overclocking at this point. It's going to get very loud, the audio is going to go weird. And in our previous video, we were overclocking the Supra, and we got that up to 800, so we're going to do something here and put this up to 800 already, just because I feel like it can handle it. And we're going to go 825 and see what hash rate we can get out of it. It might crash it, but let's put the core voltage to, the other one was 1300. It looks like we can't go past that on the default settings here, but let's just put it up to that. See what we get, because in the last video, this was the same kind of settings in terms of frequency and core voltage. As I said, the fan is going to go up to 100% speed just so we don't overburn it by accident. And we'll just see what hash rate it's giving us. And forgive me for the audio cutting out right now. So let's go dashboard. So expected terahash is 1.68. And that's very, very high. I believe people can get 2 terahash on this, but I have yet to see it. Efficiency 16.46, but I know that the efficiency is going to go out the window as soon as it starts climbing up like we see there. So 1.8 terahash. I'm expecting this to come down as well. Temperature at 62 degrees. I think that that's very high, so we might have to just restart it because it's pulling a lot of watts as well. It's pulling 33, which is very, very high, and we don't really want that, so we're going to restart it, take those settings off very quickly. So we're going to put the frequency down to the max one, and then we're going to put the core voltage to the max as well. Let's save that and restart it and see what we can get out of the hash rate there. I feel like that was climbing up way too quickly in terms of temperature and the power draw. If we can get a range of around 28 watts out of it with a temperature of 60 degrees, then that's fine with me. I'm looking for a hash rate of around 1.2, so that's expected. It's going to dip in between out of that. So it gave us 2.31 right off the bat. Obviously that's not the correct figure. 55.4 degrees there, that's climbing as well. Let's see if the watts keep climbing. Let's give it a couple seconds to actually ramp up. So after around 11 shares, we can see the hash rate is kind of steadying out at around this range. Efficiency is still very high, shares is 12. The heat temperature is staying below 60, and it doesn't really look like it's climbing too quickly, so I think it's going to stabilize out at a certain point. I don't want to run this at 100% on the fans for too long, so I'm trying to look for an overclock which is not as loud as this one, because I don't want that happening throughout the whole day. But definitely replacing the heatsink has allowed us to go up quite a lot more in terms of the temperature. I think the fan is the thing that's limiting it at this point, and we need to draw a little more heat away from the chip. I also don't know if it is set in properly in terms of the space between the chip and the heatsink. I don't know if that's correct. So I'd like to ask your guys' opinion now. Drop some suggestions in the comments of what we should do next, in terms of, do we want more fans? Do we want an ice cooler? I've seen the ice coolers out there that are actually pretty good. Or do we want to go immersion mining? And I had some thoughts about solar mining as well, like the solar bit that's out there. Had some thoughts about that as well. So there's a bunch of things we can do with this. Just let me know in the comments what you want to see. This seems to be very good in terms of the temperature at 100%, but I know that we can definitely get it down and get the hash rate up a little bit more than that. As I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.